Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to today's webinar, AI Ready Teams, Strategies for Building the AI Skills Every Knowledge Worker Needs Today. I'm Storm Vance, and I'm from the Art of Mentoring, one of the organizations that's helped bring today's discussion together. Before we begin, and I pass things over to Sia, I'd just like to give you a quick overview of the agenda for today and share a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, as you know, this session is being recorded and we'll be sharing the recording with you afterward. In terms of our agenda, Sia is going to share a little on the topic to frame our conversation and then introduce our esteemed panelists who join us from both the East and West Coast today. Always good to have broad representation. If you have a question throughout, please feel free to drop it in the chat and we can answer those at the end, or if we run out of time, we'll follow up with you directly. And of course, let's keep the conversation engaging, respectful. We're so excited to be delivering this. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panel facilitator, Sia Kupatarsias, and we'll set the scene for today's discussion. Over to you, Sia.
Thank you, Storm. As mentioned, my name is Sia, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer at WithYouWithMe. For background, for those who don't know us, we are an HR tech company that helps organizations address their workforce skills challenges. And we are very engaged in the AI conversation because, as we all know, AI really is reshaping workforce strategies in ways that we haven't seen since the rise of automation and digital transformation. Basically, we've seen AI go from this emerging capability to an everyday tool inside some of the world's biggest companies within the blink of an eye. And anyone who leads a team is now facing the reality that AI isn't just changing how we work, it's redefining what work even is. And that shift brings some really critical questions that we're looking forward to getting stuck into today. I think if you're a business leader, you're probably asking, what does this mean for my team, my organization? Are we ready for the shift? What do we need to do to get our people leveraging these technologies? Where do we even start? And the reality is AI adoption isn't just about the technology, it's about people. How do we make sure that your workforce isn't being left behind? How do you shift skills from roles that might be automated into areas where human capability is needed more than ever? And at WithYouWithMe and the Art of Mentoring, these are questions that we're working on every day with our customers, and it's why we care about the conversation today so much. We help organizations get a really clear picture of their workforce capability. What are the skills you need versus the skills you have? Our ironically AI-driven technology pinpoints skills gaps and maps out the best way to close them, whether that's through things like micro-training or mentoring, or even redeploying talent into new high-demand areas of your organization. So that's exactly why we've brought this panel together today with some of our customers, our industry partners, and our friends to have a very real, very human conversation around what AI means for your workforce and how you can start to set your people up for success. So to help us break this down, you can see on the screen here, and I will take down this, this slide shortly so that you can have a full face to look at, but we have three exceptional leaders. Firstly, the very brilliant Madeline Del Monte, the Vice President of Transformation at the iconic Paramount Global, where Maddie leads strategic AI, technology, and transformation initiatives. Javier Ponce Suarez, who I've been lucky enough to work with for a couple of years now. Javi is the Vice President and Head of Cloud and Infrastructure for Atos North America, where he covers everything from digital transformation and AI ethics to balancing responsible AI adoption with strategic innovation. And finally, a fellow Aussie, so watch the accent, who's joining us from Texas today, Amit Sion, the CEO of X-Team, which is a global network of elite engineers working with companies like Fox, News Corp, and Kaplan to build cutting-edge tech and processes. So three incredible leaders coming at this topic from very different perspectives, and I'm very much looking forward to kicking off. So with that, I might start with you, Harvey, with the very topic of this webinar, I guess, just to get the conversation going. And that is this idea of essential AI-related skills. What do you think these skills are that every knowledge worker should be developing today, regardless of their role or their industry?
Well, thank you, Sia. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. So as Atos, we are a very large technology service company with 100,000 employees. And across of those, of course, we are developing different career paths for them. But if I can summarize this question for you, Number one, we are trying to really build, I would say the normal, I would say the normal package for a knowledge worker, and that will include from the normal tooling productivity tools, as well as some algorithmic thinking, some around prompt engineering. Okay, that's number one. It's interesting because as we partner with some of our customers, we have the opportunity as well to provide some of these thinking to them as part of our engagements. We have large engagements transforming future of work and workplace for our customers, and it's interesting how knowledge peer-to-peer flows, and I think that's one of the areas that AI is bringing to the equation. The other thing that I think is also interesting is how professional AI workers are trained. In that, Atos is a headquartered company based on France, and we follow the AI EU Act. Basically, it's the act that was written in Europe. That was written last year, and by this year, actually, we have to have like a very extensive training plans on those workers that are going to be working on AI. That includes not only technical knowledge, also governance and, well, governance, ethics, compliance. And I think this is very, very important to set the boundaries and set the foundation. The last thing that I want to mention is something that we are very, very focused on is not only on technology, so what are those soft skills that allow our workers, our teams, and everybody to really use the technology. And one of the things that we see working on such a large scale organization is really organizing challenges, organizing lunch and learns, organizing teams to compete to each other to really learn from the tooling. We were, for example, one of the early stage organizations to adopt Microsoft Copilot. As many others, we were successful at the beginning, but when you scale is when the things are starting to be a bit more difficult. So we believe this is not only a technology skill, it's also a soft skill on how you adapt quicker to new technologies and new tools. With that, Sia, back to you. I think I provided a lot of context on that.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And I think you touched on a really interesting idea there as well, which is that there are so many skill gaps and so much training that needs to be done to help people evolve and keep pace with this technology. And the question I'm really curious for, and maybe Maddie, this one's for you, is who typically owns that? Because you sort of touched on it a little bit, Harvey. We have HR teams who are very invested. We've got boards who are saying this is a strategic priority for our organization. We have the tech leaders implementing the technology, and it often lands on their shoulders. Who should be leading this within organizations, Maddie?
I tease and say everyone. It's a combo of a bunch of many groups. So we have an AI task force that's tech, legal, compliance, regulatory, HR, comms, just to name a few. And they meet and lead various different pieces. We have a tech tools team for AI that we work with tech and partners, and we do training, and training is really all hands on deck. So once you have AI skills, we're using that person or that team to go broader reach. So we're using almost like an evangelistic program, for lack of a better term. We've created an internal training place called AI University where you could self-learn. We've done some extensive pilots. So we've been partnering with comms and our corporate training team to figure out how we do a broader reach on certain things. We call them like everyday AI, which is like prompting and Copilot. And then we have a POC group that looks at AI tools. So any person can submit a tool. And then we basically say from that tool evaluation, do we have a similar tool? Okay, if we have a similar tool, can you at least look at that one before we onboard, a totally separate tool? So, and then awareness is owned by tech and comms working together. So there's so many different pieces, but I feel like the AI, a core AI ops team comes together, figures out like what the work streams are going to be, and how you operationalize AI is the way that we're doing it at Paramount.
Wonderful. What about you, Amit? I'm very curious as to how you see this playing out in organizations. And particularly, I guess, you've got a unique perspective. I know you work with many organizations to help them build out their AI capability. And I'm also curious as to when you're looking at those capabilities within organizations, those who are developing the workflows and the products, how do you know when to build that internal capability, when to outsource? What do you recommend in that area?
I love how Harvey and Maddie both spoke about bringing that knowledge base in-house, because then there's a sense of ownership. Then there's a feeling that we're part of this and we're taking it forward. We get brought in when organizations are looking to scale, when they're needing additional engineering to support what they're doing. But our approach is always to support what the client is doing rather than to take it away from them. There's this element of, do you outsource? When you outsource, it means that you're taking that and letting someone else do it for you. The problem with that is the outsource doesn't know your business as well as you do. And if they do it all for you, then you're not part of the solution and you're not taking as much ownership of it, and it's not personalized to you. So the approach that we're big supporters of is to augment, to elevate the existing team, to bring external engineering to support the internal team, to understand from each other and to together level up to something that suits to that organization. That way you have ownership, and that way you also get something that is specifically directed to you. We work across so many different vertical markets, and with the AI explosion and all these organizations wanting to utilize AI and not be left behind, I can tell you they're all doing it differently. That, like, what our media company requires versus a game company versus a fintech, there's different levels of usage of it, and it needs to be personalized for them by doing it together.
Great answer. And I think it's, you mentioned all of the different organizations and industries that are tackling the approach here. And I think you're absolutely right that the strategies are going to differ, but there are going to be some consistent elements. And one of those is this importance around critical thinking and human AI collaboration. And Maddie, I would love to get your perspective on this idea that we have AI coming into organizations handling more cognitive tasks. How does the role of critical thinking evolve in an AI-powered workplace? Because that's something that transcends industry, and it's something we all have to be dealing with and thinking about now.
So I think prompting will be an essential skill. And what I love about prompting is a lot of people are using it for critical thinking, for brainstorming, for innovation, for ideas. So I think that will continue to evolve, I feel like. Somebody has to be a continuous learner in this environment. I've always prided myself on being a lifelong learner, but if you're not continuously learning, everything is evolving. I love Amit said the AI explosion. Everything is happening and changing so rapidly that if you're not keeping pace with the changes, you're out of sync before you know it. And I feel like that QC, QA will be an essential skill until AI hallucinations get better. They are getting better day by day, but really looking at what was given back and or generated if you're using Gen AI and think about it and challenge it. I think those are where I see, we call them essential skills taking place. And to be able to work with a bot. So that's a whole mind shift change, to be able to know that some of the information or some of your coworkers of the future might not be human. So
it's a fascinating concept, isn't it? And I love the idea you introduced there that I firmly believe and agree with, which is that people need to be agile now more than ever. I think we often get caught up in this idea of how is AI, automation, and augmentation impacting our roles for tomorrow? But the reality is it's not just one change. It's going to be changing forevermore. People are constantly needing to be reskilling and staying ahead of the curve. So how do we keep pace with that and identify those with the agility to be thriving in certain areas and really supporting them to do that? And it also, really brings to the fore that point you made about critical thinking. And I'm really keen to get your view, Harvey, on what strategies you think leaders can use to ensure that AI is enhancing human decision making rather than replacing it. To Maddie's point, we might have robot colleagues in the future, but how do we really support the humans in this?
All right. I mean, I'm fully aligned to what Madeline mentioned just before. If there is one area where we are fully focused right now as leaders in my organization is basically the area of augmenting the middle management. Of course, we have gone through some of the low-hanging fruits as everybody else on taking meeting notes, following apps, kind of the low-hanging automation of AI. I think we are in a moment where AI is starting to have a more, I would say, valuable contribution to insight. And there is an area I personally am very excited about is storytelling with data, basically insights. As many of you know, leaders all around, the way things are managed in business tends to be a bit unclear as you go down the hierarchy. But as you go down the hierarchy, is also the opportunity to change faster and become more agile, to your points here. So to me, the better everybody understands their scope, the better we will operate and the better you can change. There are so many books about change management and how middle management can really help decentralize that change. So I am very, very excited. I'm using this personally where I'm using AI to really help me find other angles on my data and really challenge my thinking on what exactly decisions we should make. And that's the way we are starting to look into that on how we, with AI, we peer review our storytelling of our data when it comes to business management. And it's an area that I'm very excited about.
I love that. And I think it's also, you raised a great point around the role of managers and hierarchy. And I think it also adds to the context of mentoring and supporting employees who are adapting to AI-driven change. We can't just, put them on a training course and hope for the best. We can't just give them those technical skills. I think, Maddie, you mentioned, obviously, the importance of soft skills. Amit, what would you recommend in terms of how mentoring can support people through this change and how organizations might want to structure mentoring programs for AI readiness?
What you find is that, humans learn best from humans. We learn from others. We always are searching for someone else who's doing it well, and we want to do it like them. And with AI, it's no different. There's going to be the people who are passionate about it and who will dive in really quickly. And like Maddie said, like the lifelong learner that will be inquisitive and want to ask the right questions and all that. So we encourage that there's going to be people who take that, let them be the front runners, let them lead it, and then bring it to others, rather than forcing everyone to say, hey, we're all doing this now. You're all forced to let go of your old ways and do this with us. Let the ones who want to be early adopters do that, and let them come and present that to others and say, hey, there's something really great here that I'm doing, and I thought you might be interested in it, because then they're seeing it by example. And the ones who are passionate about it, they're just going to be even more excited about teaching it and sharing that information with each other. I think the wonderful thing that's happening now with AI is that it's elevating what it means to be human. And there's some that fear it and think, oh, this will take away what I do. In fact, what it does is it raises the beautiful elements that are personal about you and bringing that more to the surface. If you're able to take that mentality, then you're just going to thrive in this current times.
I love that. And Maddie, I'm curious, you mentioned your AI university before. Is mentorship and factoring that in part of how that works as well?
I'd even say it almost has to be because media is it's very contentious. You know, you have a lot of creative people who might be not so on board with the AI change, right? So finding people who are super excited about AI and pairing them up and finding use cases that might be outside of their day job, you know. So one of my big things is like, look, try it at home. Like, you know, have some fun with it. So like, you know, doing a dinner party, you know, ask it to create a menu in the style of Gordon Ramsay for, you know, there's tons of things that you can do with it, right? And then, you know, if you're scared of it from a creative perspective, you know, image prompting and things like that, then use it to, you know, read through an email thread, summarize a document, you know, ask it to do things you hate. You know, somebody had said to me, treat it like an intern. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, treat it like an intern. Like you now have a shadow ninja intern who, you know, for the most part will, if you give them the directions, will do things that you don't necessarily want to do. And I thought that was genius. So, you know, so pairing somebody who's enthusiastic and then having them, you know, come up with their laundry list and say, look, what do you hate doing? Like, let's get AI to do it. And then that's how you're going to win over those people, right? And build excitement around it. So, you know, we're touting it on Slack channels. We're, you know, putting up prompts of the week to try, all that type of stuff. So it's really just that getting people excited and finding the people who are excited and try to harness it to move it out to other groups.
Great. And it's a great segue into the topic of AI adoption and change management. Harvey, what are your biggest challenges that you've seen organizations face when they're integrating AI into their workflows, and how can leaders kind of get ahead of the problem and proactively manage that change?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a difficult one. I think Madeline and Amit already articulated a lot of strategies. From my view and what I have seen in the marketplace with ourselves, some of our customers, there's always this hype of the pilot that everybody jumps in. It's like yay. There is always a little bit of a flat environment after that, a little bit of declining, and then this is where you have to act to come back up. My personal view is this still is requires the typical change management program with the why, the what, this is for me, and the how. I think what is different is I think technology pace is starting to be very quick. It's very, as I said before, it's a bit decentralized. AI is kind of, so there is a core, but it's also satellites growing up by themselves. So it's a bit different. So it's not like you have a typical change management program that you're going to deploy a new technology in 1 year, your workforce is all trained and you're good. This is more cyclical. And I really love what Madeline explained about games, about making it fun. I think that's part of the key here. I think at least what we are focusing on is really building the foundation in our workforce, but at the same time keeping them engaged with something fun and something that is entertaining. Because to us, I think that's a key. Otherwise, it is. Again, we are, I guess everybody, we are all in a busy industry, and it's always difficult to ask workforce for more. Right? So unless they see it differently.
Yeah. And I think agree completely that we need to have fun. Humans want to be excited. I think we've all sort of touched on that, which leads me to the less fun, but perhaps most important part, which is governance. And, you know, I know there's, you know, we have training on our platform that sort of seeks to teach ethical AI use and help people really understand the side of the governance. But how, Amit, do you think companies can balance innovation with governance to ensure that adoption of AI is aligning with not only business goals and human curiosity, but also ethical standards?
Oh, absolutely. Firstly, on the fun element, I love what both Harvey and Maddie are doing, because you don't want it to be this big scary thing. Like we've built a number of AI agents into our company, and when we introduced them, we actually gave them names and we gave them little personas, and we welcomed them like we would welcome new ex-teamers joining the company, so that people would see it as just another entity here to support us like any other ex-teamer. But it's so important to have the balance of both the risk taking and the risk mitigating. So the way that we've advised a lot of organizations on it is to do both with full passion. So to have your risk taker, so who the person who is going to be driving innovation, who's going to be exploring all the latest technologies that are available to testing it out and all that, but then also have someone who's responsible for governance. So the person who's going to be reviewing what we shouldn't be doing, where we're at risk of exposing our business to things that we shouldn't do, where we're especially in our clients who are in the big media space, that this is a very important element that we're very conscious of how we support them in getting AI involved. So having both spaces and getting those two leaders to work together collaboratively, so that they're speaking to each other to go, hey, this is great technology, well, here's the potential risks, and then they find the balance with them. And what we do is we recommend those people to speak, and then they find where what's that Spider-Man thing, great power comes great responsibility. This is what we've got right now. We've got great power, but we need to use it in the right way. Otherwise, we can expose ourselves to things that divert what our business is originally about. So use the power, but do it in a way that doesn't subtract anything from what you're currently doing. I think it's an important element to discuss.
Yeah, I agree. And Maddie, what do you think the ethical considerations should be?
I know for one thing, I'm definitely stealing Amit's name my bot thing. I love that. So look, models are not set it and forget it, right? And I feel like a lot of companies are building these models and they're putting them out there, but there's not a great way to report bias in models, to be able to in a user-friendly way, to basically say, look, you got this wrong in your model. So I feel like companies need to do a better job at that. From a responsibility standpoint, not everyone loves AI. So you always have to keep that in the back of your head. So these broad, like peanut butter all over everything, strokes of AI might not necessarily work. More targeted approaches to be thoughtful. AI can be expensive when you take the, everybody gets some approach. So you should figure out what makes sense. Models should live up to governance, something like we have the internal task force, but I would guess eventually what you're going to see is more governmental regulatory around them. You're starting to see it pop up in various different places now. So I think that, to really look at what you're putting out there, the results it's giving, and to hold yourself accountable, I think is the most, important thing as a company when deploying AI in their workforce for ethics.
Do you think, because I know we very much want our employee base to be leaning into these kinds of changes, do you think it needs to be mandated that employees are going through things like ethical AI and governance training, and you're keeping a record of that?
I think we do various different business ethics training. We are definitely now starting to do some guidelines around information security and best practices and things like that. So we keep touting them. Whether they become required eventually, I would say the usage to AI really has to uptick in the company in order to say, okay, now's a good time to do it. So, what is that like? 20%, 50% of the company is using AI on a daily basis. And we would definitely look to some best practices around when that becomes mandatory, for lack of a better term.
Harvey, what do you think in terms of businesses embedding responsible AI principles into their company culture and daily operations? How do you think it can be done?
Good question. Again, very, very broad. This is a topic that I've been researching for a while, as I have teams and businesses across the different continents. And it's a very interesting area because when you are in Europe, for example, the data belongs to the individual. When you are in Asia or countries like China, the data belongs to the collective. And when you are in the US, you are kind of in the middle. And depends on that, you rule different rules. I think as a leader, first of all, it's important that you communicate very well your vision around this topic, aligned with your company guidelines. So, for example, obviously we have an AI policy group, and I'm pretty sure many of us have one. But I think the second thing is again, it's besides the trainings that, of course, if you are an AI professional, you have to follow some sort of trainings. I think it's important you build the right governance for what you are trying to apply. That can be very like I would say old style, but can be also very modern. You can build a very modern governance. AI is a different technology. It's not like a technology that you can just, I would say, test it or have some sort of quality assurance and get done with it. No, AI will continue to evolve. So you have to build that, I would say, quality checks. We also have some ethical collaboration per groups that really help understand what we were trying to achieve and really have those quality gates to help us maintain our, I would say, our objectives in our rail. But overall, my thinking is make sure you understand first the geography of what you are trying to achieve, and this is different on a different continent. Even within the country is different on areas like California and other states. So understands that first, align your vision to that, and align a governance that allow you to go and deliver your business. That will be my advice. But it's very customized in this case, I would say.
I think one of the biggest themes has obviously been that the only constant is change in this AI world. And when we start to look at, future-proofing organizations as best we can, I'm really interested in the idea of upskilling and best practices that you guys have seen, whether it's in your own organizations or in market. Maddie, what are some of the best practices you've seen around upskilling and ways to measure success around that?
Yeah. So I love tiny teachable moments, small tidbits of AI that are like between 8 and 10 minutes on like how-to videos. We have a program called Everyday AI that covers like Copilot, smart recordings from Zoom, Asana AI. And then we have something called My Assistant, which is our bot. So having a contest like Stump the My Assistant, beat AI type thing, using it, as I said, outside of work to get it inside of work. We measure with surveys as well as our mailbox. We look at how those tools like Copilot, how many people are utilizing them, how they're utilizing them. I can't say enough about the challenges and gamifications. This is a people change, and I feel like those are the hardest. People have to feel on board and married to that. So one thing we've done is like, give us a prompt, we'll use it in our prompt of the week. You win a prize. Shout out on a major Slack channel. And I think as I said, teaching people that they don't even have to use it for like what they do. They just need to use aspects of it in their life, I think has been the greatest thing. Because like, major changes with people sometimes are scary, especially when they've been doing things the same way or the same type of thing for so long. So bringing in those little teachable moments and figuring out, as I said, give me everything you hate and, we'll have AI do it for you. So I think that makes
Great.
sense.
Does. I mean, what about you? What are your tips?
It's interesting. It moves so fast that you can't do it like anything else that you've done, right? Like we started, we were doing both internally for ourselves and for our clients to do training sessions. Here's this AI tool, here's how you can use it and all that. Then about 3 weeks later, that AI tool was nowhere near as good as the new one that came out. So what was the use of that training? And we found that you need to be open to that. You need to realize that this is not about learning something now that you'll hold on to for the year or the next 2 years. It's about being agile with your learning. So learning to have a go and try it and use it, and then move along and knowing that it'll be replaced. It's quite different to some of larger organizations that they need to consolidate more in their training, because what they find is that they want people to use AI in a consistent way so that people aren't going in different directions. So for them, what we find is they need to both train and build the interfaces so that people aren't going directly into the AI tools, but rather going through their middle space into the AI tool, so that the AI tool can be changed in the background, but the way that your end user is using it is consistent. And what that means is that you're not veering from the service or delivery that you provide to your end customer, because you're controlling the middle space. I think that you'll find that there's going to be a lot more of that development that comes out in this year, where people are wanting to control that middle space, because the AI tools will constantly change and will improve. For what you do, you need to have some sort of control over, so that people don't space and do things differently.
Yeah, good prediction. I could have this conversation all day into the evening, but we are going to have to start wrapping up shortly. So I did just want to sort of get final thoughts from you guys, and in particular, as we look ahead, that one piece of advice that you'd give to organizations preparing for the next wave of AI-driven transformation. And we might go to all of you, but we'll start with you, please, Harvey.
Thank you. Hey, look, and first of all, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Madly and Amira. I learned a lot from you guys today. So I will say, either if you are a leader or a team leader or a knowledge worker or a frontline worker, I would say get yourself into the driver's seat. Do not be the co-pilot. Learn what the technology can do for you and your scope and your business. This is like learning a new language. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you use the words to articulate your thinking. I will say that's to me the better advice. Get in the driver's seat. Okay.
Love it. Thank you. Maddie?
Yeah, I am very similar, and thank you so much. I thought this was a great conversation, but being agile, nimble, like as I mentioned, it's changing daily. I feel like you can't avoid it at this point, and I feel like there are some groups, people who are trying to sweep it under the rug. It's here. It's not going away. The later you start, the further down the road and behind the curve you're going to be. So I feel like, as I said, just grab the bull by the horns, have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be serious, and use it. Use it and test it out, and be vocal when it works and be vocal when it doesn't work, right? And I think that's the important part that I would say.
Great. And Amit, round us out.
Well, there's something that both Harvey and Maddie spoke about so beautifully, which is about this all comes down to asking the right question, right? That's where it all begins. I've spoken to a lot of CEOs that say to me, oh, our board is telling us that we have to use AI, otherwise we're going to be left behind. And there's so much fear about it. There's so much fear about, like, we have to quickly inject it. Start with the question of what are we trying to achieve? What are we wanting to do? Rather than we have this great tool and everyone else is using it and we're left behind. Take that out. What are we trying to achieve? Is there something here that can support and elevate us? That's the right question. And that essentially aligns with what AI is. It's about asking the right question to him.
Such a great point. It's the first lesson we're all often taught, when we enter business, what are the objectives? And I think you're right that in this rush to kind of stay ahead and catch up, it's often the forgotten question. So a great point to finish on, Amit. Thank you. And thank you. I'm just going to share my screen again for the close, but thank you so much, Maddie, Harvey, and Amit. That was a really engaging, interesting conversation. I know it's not easy to tackle and talk about AI. It is such a complex, broad area, and we certainly covered a lot of ground today, but I have just popped some key takeaways up on the screen, and I'll share this with you all later, as well as the recording. And for anyone who has questions, I know we've probably not got much time for it today, but please feel free to follow us up with us directly afterwards, and we can certainly put you in touch with our panelists as well. I've got my contact details on the screen as well as Storm's. But we'll leave it there for today. Thank you all for your time. Deeply appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you.